Alrighty, going into game, here we are. First game of the night, NRG Esports v Simplicity, hanging out in Nepal.
Nepal is where the action is going to take place, and already we see a bit of a disparity here between the two teams. It might just be good game planning by Simplicity if they stick with this. They're going to have the option of running a Widow versus McCree, and this is going to force Damon Jamerson to be hiding behind Butcher at all points, and if he doesn't know there's a Widow, he can get picked off immediately.
Stratus has to be careful himself, though, because he's on the Sombra now. He's not going to be contested when he tries to go for this hack, if he does go for that mega health pack, but the spam will keep him honest now. He's going to stealth in, just try to get the information for his team.
Meanwhile, NRG just going to hide behind the Theresa. Simplicity, again, we'll see how much they want to engage, ideally. And there it is! Retzi gets the early pick on the Rob. It's not the McCree, but it lets Simplicity now rotate onto the point. Stress is going to try and equalize, hack here in the back on the Theresa, but ends up, watch your step, picked off, and Retzi gets a pickup. But while this is going on, Simplicity gets the first cap, but you have Damon working around the outskirts. NRG was able to even things out, even as Simplicity took the point, and they're going to recap immediately. Only 8% to Simplicity.
Only 8% towards Simplicity there, and even though Stratus had gone down first, there was a lot of attention being drawn towards him. You saw that the Theresa on the opposite end wasn't looking over at him, so now DPS is swapping. They're going to go full dive out from Simplicity now.
And I don't think you'd want to be on the Widow as you're trying to retake. It would not be ideal. I mean, it has worked from time to time, but this is a little bit more traditional. As Retzi almost gets dunked by Damon, takes another headshot, has to use rewind after getting the health pack. Going to be moving away from that. Meanwhile, Damon, dead-eye towards the bulk of the point. Not going to connect here. In fact, DPS a little bit far out on the Simplicity end, and this is still decent right now for NRG. They're holding back, and it's up to Simplicity to make a move onto them. They're already down a tank, and Retzi looking for anything to even up, but so far Simplicity not being decisive enough.
No, NRG are just balling up so well right now, and Damon is controlling so much space. Retzi not able to make his way in at all on that Tracer, along with KSF really having to deal with Damon, who is now here in an NA, I believe. So his aim has been spectacular so far. He is keeping them honest.
All right, 59, now 60% for NRG. NRG having a defensive Transcendence and Valkyrie in reserve. Simplicity, if they don't get an early pick off here, the best they can hope to do is just drain a few ultimates as they move in. You're going to see them rotate around the right side. Again, looking for an early pick-off, but NRG just rotates back. KSF, though, on the dive-in, gets Damon. The double flank assault from Simplicity gets the early picks they need, but there's the EMP coming up from Stratus. Trying to equalize, but it's so late into the fight. Damon going to fall into the pit, and NRG looking towards perhaps a reset here because of that flanking ambush by Simplicity.
They're using the self-destruct into this just to try and stall it out further, try to get that 99%, instantly demec'd as he gets out. The self-destruct will finish off Rob, and so the last gasp of dying breaths here, NRG will give up the point, but still now it's an uphill battle for Simplicity. It's at 99 to 10%, and they have to be absolutely immaculate in these holds.
Perfection is the name of the game, and one of the ways they can be perfect, Dragon Blade.
Yeah, and because they got the Transcendence out in that last fight, KSF, all he really has to deal with is Fazix trying his best to pocket someone, but the Blade will be able to cut through that healing. So they're going to be on top of this here, as Stratus is now moving in.
Well, it's not really Stratus who wants to hear, it's KSF. KSF has the Blade, he's coming in from the flank, but how is KSF going to use this? KSF, Blade out, gets Rob in the back, looking for more. 3 kills from KSF, cutting right on through. My word, that's what you want from a Blade in that situation.
Yeah, that was some mileage coming out from them there. They had to use of course, the sound barrier just to make sure that he was able to execute with that. But Retzi, he will have a pulse bomb, try to delay this out further. But NRG, they're building up to their ultimates right now. They could take another quick lost fight and then come into the next one with 6, or just try to use this Valkyrie, buy time for Damon, buy time for Rob to try and get the Transcendence.
Damon under pressure here to the right side, able to back out just a little bit. Stratus looking for a hack on the other end, but really, Damon able to get healed back up. If he can get an early pick-off, it's going to be big. So Stratus is looking for an imp here, but not really the biggest deal. Butcher coming in with the Primal Rage. Can be knocking around, making room for energy, but while this is going on, Specs is getting focused down. Simplicity was able to get away from the worst of it here. It's a not bad of a disengage at all. Stratus is built to use it.
And all that time, they were not pressuring the point, and so Simplicity will maintain their hold over it now. It's at 90 to 99%. It's going to be up to Stratus here to get onto the point, but he has been found out by Retzi.
He has been found. Now Simplicity, they've almost brought this right back. Ginger Puff boops off Stratus. You can't EMP if you're searching for Montana's gold. What a boop by Ginger Pop. Catches him off guard. And here comes KSF, what could be a finishing blade. Blade out. And Transcendence is going to fade. NRG down to their final 2 people on the point. Unless the self-destruct gets to like 4 people, it's not going to happen. Simplicity, they turn things around on NRG here. A late EMP doesn't matter. Overtime ticks around, and that is going to be the round to Simplicity.
It took far too long for NRG to reset in the fight before this, and so they had to make a mad dash onto the point. That's why we saw Stratus go in with that Sombra getting booped off, because, well, you can't really worry about positioning when you just want to get overtime now. So Simplicity will take the lead. As we move on here onto Shrine, KSF is making his way over to Sombra, and Retzi is currently sitting over that Soldier 76.
And 76 is a particularly strong pocket pick for Retzi, where he never really gets himself in a rough position. He's always able to get very good cleanup, more so than the average 76. And NRG, their game plan here has to rely on diving him more so than perhaps that you might usually do with a Soldier, because he is the punching power behind the Simplicity attack. Yeah,
so Simplicity are going to be looking towards trying to take ultimately the left side controlled over by the elephant statue. That's where Soldier 76s like to be here, not confined on the right-hand side. As you can see, Retzi already taking so much damage, has to back away, but he might get the D back. It's going to be DPS to fall first.
DPS falls first, but Ginger Pop's right there at the res. Simplicity still very much in this fight. See KSF flanking around the side. Retzi under pressure to the side, able to get away from that pressure in the moment. Zamzo, we see him on the verge of getting DMAC, gets healed up at the last moment. They weren't able to DMAC him. That means that Simplicity can roll back onto this point. Damon went a little bit too far deep. Here comes Retzi, tack visor up. Super early tack visor for Retzi, and that's just gonna be tearing through Specs on the outskirts, and yet the Transcendence even earlier on the other side. Rob gonna keep them alive, and NRG still very much in this fight.
Oh, there's an EMP out. They're gonna back it up with that Transcendence. They wanna fight back into this now, and with forcing the members off, NRG will lose the point, and Simplicity now ticking up, and they are forcing back the members of NRG. Phozix might even get staggered here.
Well, Simplicity able to get the cleanup they need in the situation, but they use just about everything. NRG can have some tools going into this next fight.
Yep, they've got the self-destruct, they've got both tank ultimates, but they need a bit more follow-up with it. Luckily for them, they have all of the get-out-of-jail-free cards. Sound barrier almost online for Phozix here, and Stratus is going to be looking for this EMP. It's 2% away.
Stratus right now looking for the best way to put energy into this fight. EMP's built up, not a great position to use it. Meanwhile, they've already lost Rob. Stratus did not commit there early on. Both Zens are out of the fight. Now you see Phozix on the other side. DPS out early on, gets isolated. As NRG now, they don't have to do anything crazy. They can even save this EMP potentially. Let's see, dances onto a point with no objective in mind. This is gonna be a reset for Simplicity and a take for NRG.
Yeah, surprising positioning coming out from Retzi there. He does want to be by that elephant statue. They can get that Mega control, but right now, it's just going to be that inner Mega for the Simplicity squad. Now, KSF, he's almost got that EMP up, but of course, it'll be just as effective if you can get an individual hack off. There we go, 1J Lee's the first to fall.
EMP doing its work that time around, and easily a quick fight from NRG. It's going to cause Simplicity to reset, but never forget, we saw Simplicity bring things back from the brink in the last round. They have the capability to turn things around even down 20%.
Yeah, and so coming into this next fight now, KSF, he does have that EMP. It'll be much easier for him to get a confirmed hack onto that Diva, allowing Retzi to push forward with that tactical visor, get as much damage off as soon as he sees the Winston's cooldowns are gone.
And KSF, he's going to look for the EMP, and the goal for Retzi is going to be to come in on the side and use the tack visor right after. He tack visors early, knowing that the EMP was coming in, and yet doesn't have as many targets as he'd like. Gets Damon, who's coming in from the back, but for the most part is pushed back after. Still, it's a one-man advantage for Simplicity here. NRG getting thrown off the point. The EMP has done its work, and Rob under pressure from both ends here, just trying to get out. Certainly no escapes for Phozix, as Simplicity brings it right back.
Yeah, Simplicity will be able to take it back here, but take a look. NRG, they're at 93%. They have almost 5 ultimates online, while in that last retake, Simplicity, they had to use their Valkyrie, the EMP, along with the tactical visor. Luckily, Retzi has been doing a lot of damage now, so he should be able to get it, hopefully, towards the middle of this fight.
Well, the goal here is that you have Butcher initiate. He's going to get Primal Rage immediately, be a little bit more crazy on this initiation. Then you have the EMP coming up from Stress. So the EMP is already up, and look at that, Damon's already down, so he wants a good EMP here, working with less of an advantage. See if Stress goes for it in the moment. The barrier is certainly out here. Butcher under fire, gonna Primal Rage. Now he's gonna send Retzi for a ride. Retzi getting thrown the other way. Strauss with the EMP, uses it to remove Wanja from the fight. And Butcher still dancing in, over, and around the other side. And this is looking very good for NRG because if they retake here, Simplicity's just not gonna have a lot of time to get back in.
Yeah, and so they just give up the point here as they clean up the members. At 95%, we'll see. Simplicity doesn't look like they're going to be able to get any members on there. There we go. Winston jumps on in, but DPS, he doesn't have his Primal Rage. He has no healing whatsoever. Overtime still ticking away. Now they've got to be careful. They are already down a main tank.
KSM's got to come in and maybe just drop the EMP with the Women of Prayer, but not able to get Rob. Rob saw it coming a mile away, transcends before the EMP hits, able to stay alive in the moment, and it's just clean up from here. NRG say if you're going to be us on the ball, you better do it in 3, because we're going to a 3rd round.
Yeah, that's twice now Rob has actually caught out KSF coming in with that EMP and is able to preemptively use his Transcendence there, especially when it comes to the last fight. You don't want to be holding on to that Trance and then only using it for the mobility to try and get back onto the point. So Rob has been on point with his Transcendence in the face of that Sombra. So now we are moving on to Village, and already take a look, Smex is hovering over that Roadhog.
Hog, and why wouldn't you bring it out here in Village? It has better choke points for Hog, many areas where you can sort of hide behind, catch someone off guard. I like this approach, and even the Moira here, you take a look, they're going to be running something more tank heavy, and they're just going to look for heavy point control. Meanwhile, Simplicity, if they stick with this, they're going to be looking to split people off. The Mei is also a valid pick for the stage.
Yep. Surprisingly, though, normally teams like to take it onto the high ground there and then try to cut them off with that Mei wall, but it looks like they have a good read on Simplicity. They just want to get onto the point, get inside, but oh, Smex starts it off. Already a hook onto Retzi, taking him on out, but they do have them split up. Unfortunately, they weren't able to finish off the Ryan.
No, but there might be a wall here in a second. Wait 2 seconds here for Cal. Oh, no more wall. Just take it down. The Hellfire Shotgun's to the back. And that's going to be enough from NRG here. You get the early hook, you take the momentum, and then you take the point.
So now this is a position that's going to be very difficult to try and evict the NRG squad from. Now KSF is sticking with that Mei, and so they need to be able to move onto the point very quickly, use that wall, and try to fight like a 2v6, a 3v6, and win it out outright. But the problem is they didn't do that up against Butcher. Another hook comes in.
Smex is super low here early on. He has to back out. There's the wall. You try and isolate the Reinhardt with this Mei. That's exactly what they're looking for. Are they going to get the Ryan here? No, they're not able to finish off. Butcher was healed up all the while. The Coalescence in the back, keeping him nice and healthy. Stratus now, the front line. Hellfire Shotguns ahoy, and oh my word, when a Tracer gets caught by a Ryan, the movie brought to you by Butcher.
Yeah, and NRG started that off correctly. I mean, Smex, his primary target here, now that he's going for the hooks, even though it sounds a little unorthodox, is to actually go after Zombs, go after the Diva, because if you hook anyone else, well, they're going to be able to survive. You got the Mei wall, you got to worry about breaking the line of sight of the hook, along with, of course, the defense matrix.
Secret Agent Reinhardt right now. Butcher in a great position to drop the hammer. They have no idea he's here. And unfortunately for Butcher, they also did not go over there. Still, he's going to wait for the shield. He can drop the hammer and does. Knocks down 3. The fall through here, the self-destruct right after. Can you get away in time? They do. Retzi counters the bomb to the back. They deal with Butcher's ambush. Earth Shatter or no. Stratus, meanwhile, laying in the Hellfire Shotguns on the other side. NRG still has a hope and a prayer here, but it's not looking great. Simplicity has far more people on the point than Stratus. Oh, a Reaper meets 4 people.
Reaper meets 4 people indeed, and he will fall. That was a great play coming up from Simplicity. They had to use everything into that fight, though. But that Blizzard is one of the more crucial abilities used from Simplicity there to really try and mitigate the damage, especially after that Earth Shatter from Butcher. It connected onto 3, but he wasn't able to do anything, nor were the rest of NRG, because they were frozen in place.
Oh, they were frozen, and oh, well, Strauss going, wait, I want to join the fight. This is what you see here, though. You try and isolate and kill the Reinhardt, but the Moira was right there. You were able to keep Butcher alive. Now NRG in a good position. Drop the Blossom, and there it is. Strauss moves in, gets DPS, makes it a 2-for. The tank line has been decimated by these Hellfire Shotguns. that's enough for NRG to immediately retake. Simplicity can be down to one of their last lives.
Well, the theory has been sound for Simplicity, right? You cut off the forces and then you finish them off. Well, they haven't gotten to point, or the second step of that plan. They are getting the wall-offs onto Butcher, but they're not finishing him off. He stays alive. That means more healing out for Rob, more healing for Fozix. They're just able to build up their ultimate so quickly because they're not finishing off Butcher.
And it's the Moira, right? They're not separating him away from Rob in these fights. Early hook, gonna chunk down Zombs quite a bit. He's able to get healed. Barrier up from NRG as they hold ground. Retzi dashing around, looking for a moment to drop the pulse bomb. Simplicity, a good moment, and the Blizzard gonna be freezing out on the point, setting up Retzi for 2 kills. Simplicity coming right back into it, and now you might see KSF swap. This is the perfect time to swap. You've used your Blizzard, you've taken control of the point, you have time to run back. This is where you swap to like a Genji or something else.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see a Genji here. They need to be able to snowball into these fights, but instead, it looks like KSF is going to be sticking with that Mei as he tries to regroup with his team now. NRG, though, they're coming up onto some highly impactful ultimates. They got the Coalescence just 6% away. Butcher just 1 hammer swing away from having that Earth Shatter, and of course, Smex with that whole hog. When you fight on the point, it's so difficult to escape it.
Now, you just set up a great moment for NRG. You split off the Reinhardt, Rob coalesces, and then, oh, well, that bomb, so much for that. The double bomb into the back from Simplicity, just destroying the back line of NRG in the moment. Now, 99-75. It's all going to come down to one final fight.
It's going to come down to one final fight indeed. Finally, Simplicity's game plan does work out here on Village, but again, it's in the face of 4 ultimates. We'll see how good of a wall that KSF has for this time around. NRG, they don't like the main approach. They're going to try and come in from kitchen, but KSF is already on the high ground. He's got the line of sight to try and figure this out.
The goal here is that even if you get split off, you keep Rob with Reinhardt, you have the Colossus thing, and they get into a point uncontested. This is so bad for Simplicity. They drop the Mei wall, but oh, he doesn't bring the hammer down! Butcher bursted even with Rob nearby. I think Rob is split off. Stratus drops the Death Blossom, doesn't get quite as much as he would like. And yet, NRG still in this. Rob able to finish up some kills here. Simplicity getting bopped around. A late Blizzard onto that fight, and you see Stratus just surviving most of it in Wraith form, able to not get touched. It's back and forth between both teams. Retzi, pulse bomb, back into the fight. Doesn't connect. It gets Damon at the cost of his own life. It's NRG that's winning this melee. They retake the point, and they take the map.
You had mentioned, ZP, that KSF staying with Mei was, instead of like going to Genji, was probably going to be the reason that they had lost that last point.
Well, no, I didn't think it would be a reason that they'd lose at all. Just it was a good moment for them to potentially swap off, right? Where you've used the Mei wall, the team has sort of gotten used to Mei, you've already sort of conditioned them to be afraid of the Mei the entire time, and you've just, like again, you've used your ultimate in a fight that you're winning, so why wouldn't you consider their swapping in that moment? It's not that they couldn't have won with the Mei, it's just that that would be a situation where if you think about predicting swaps in Overwatch, you would see a swap there.
Yeah, she had just used her Blizzard, and as you had mentioned, they had actually been conditioned to it, so they changed up their approach on that final push, right? Instead of going through main, they went through kitchen, and I thought KSF would have been in prime position to cut that off. The great thing about trying to approach from the kitchen there when you're facing off against the Mei is, even if the Mei does get the wall off, you have a second door that you can just move over to and be like, oh, okay, I don't care about your wall. But he wasn't there in time for it, and they weren't able to execute that same game plan that they had been running the entire time on Village.
Yeah, you know, kind of speaking to KSF's predictability, you guys had also mentioned that when it came to Rob being able to time that Transcendence every time that we would see KSF go after Reinhardt.
Right. Well, what was happening there is that he was sticking really close to him on the Moira. So essentially, you try and wall off the Reinhardt, right? You wall off the Reinhardt, you burst him down, which they did do successfully a few times. But there are plenty of times where Rob was building Coalescence up really quickly, and he was able to just coalesce, keep the beam up through the back line. Butcher didn't end up falling, and even with the split, they were able to stay alive and then immediately turn the tables, because the thing about Mei is that she brings less overall presence than other heroes you can have in that spot. So if you don't get value off the wall, if you don't split people off and make it happen, well, you're probably not going to win the fight.
One of the things that we saw in this game was really an outstanding performance by the tanks on NRG. So let's take a look first at some of Butcher's Winston play.
Yeah, I mean, the main job of the Butcher here is the Winston is just to dislodge the Soldier 76. That's the power position that when you run a Soldier 76 here on Shrine, you want to be up by this statue here. You're able to rotate around. You're not kind of stuck against the wall, but you do, of course, run into the fear of being thrown off the ledge.
Yep, the fear where a Winston can just bend you to his whim. And you see Butcher, or not just Butcher, but Winstons in general do that all the time now, where it's just like, hey, I'm a Winston. It's now 2018. I know how to throw people off cliffs. It's no longer just a more random ult. It's like, no. There is finesse.
What was the main source of Simplicity's comeback in that very first, when we were in Sanctum?
Well, in Sanctum, it was that Stratus just played very aggressively there. I would say Simplicity, making the right swap-offs, helped them out ultimately. It was really weird because neither team were really prioritizing the points. They were taking these odd angle fights, often places that really you shouldn't be fighting. So it was just, it looked like there was a lack of coordination on the part of NRG at the on Sanctum in particular.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think that you had Retzi start out there on the Widowmaker, and if it doesn't work out, then you've kind of put yourself in a hole, right? And he was able to go back to a more bread and butter on Tracer, get more done, and this is pretty common, right? Where you open on something like a Widowmaker, where you're hoping that you'll get early pickoffs and make it work. When it doesn't, you'll still see teams rebound when they go to their more traditional strategy, even if their opening gambit didn't work.
Alrighty, well, let's turn our focus now to map selection, where we will be traveling to Numbani, and talk a little bit about what you guys expect to see from these teams here.
Particularly here on Numbani, because KSF and Retzi did show it off for us, that Widowmaker Junkrat. A lot of teams have been liking running that on defense for Numbani, so I feel like that might be something that they're going towards here for their point A defense.
Yeah, Retzi, he will not shy away from Widowmaker duty. I think we will absolutely be seeing him come into play here on Widow. NRG, of course, they do have the option that not every team has where they can run a good Pharah. But there is kind of a conundrum there, is that if teams know you're going to be running a Pharah and you're running a defensive Widowmaker, the way this could very easily play out is that Stratus goes, yes, I will Pharah. Get sniped by Retzi. I will no longer Pharah. I will now Genji. So that interplay could happen here, especially if Simplicity has done their homework.
Now, we had also talked about, and you mentioned this, like you touched on it very briefly in gameplay, the fact that NRG has started to move a lot of their out-of-town players over here to North America, and where they're actually being able to boot camp and work together on the same in the same area, as opposed to having to go in between your different servers. So where do you see, have you seen that actually make a difference in what, because I know you were expecting, especially from Stratus, seeing a difference in his, or not Stratus, sorry.
Damon.
In Damon's play. Was it noticeable to you?
Well, like he started off on the McCree when we were on Sanctum, and it looked like he was landing all of his shots. I mean, Retzi wasn't able to get in at all. They just were having difficulty trying to deal with it, and he was controlling a lot of space with it, but, you know, it didn't work out for them. I still don't really buy McCree on Sanctum in particular, just because there's so much more different composition that you can run that can apply a lot more pressure.
I think part of the rhyme and the reason to run the McCree there was along the lines of, I think if you've done your homework, you know that Retzi is very strong in helping carry that, and Damon might have thought, hey, look, I can contain it with McCree. I'll be on anti-Retzi duty. It didn't quite work out in that situation, but oftentimes that could be the reasoning, is that you can use McCree to shut down a Tracer to an extent, but it's easier said than done, as, you know, if your team is diving well and making space, a Tracer can still get things done, even if McCree has a death wish. Yeah,
you guys had mentioned that we saw some kind of strange flankings, non-traditional flanking from these teams.
I'm not sure how much non-traditional. I mean, certainly positioning on on Sanctum was a little bit weird, where I think the key point there was that you had a fight where Simplicity was way behind ult economy, and they were still able to dive in such a way that it caught NRG unawares. They got 2 early kills. It's like, whoa, this fight shouldn't have gone their way. And when you get those moments, it works out really well to taking the map as a whole.
Alrighty, well, let's get right back into game. Here we are traveling to Numbani, where NRG currently holds a 1-0 lead.
Meet Ify. She's basically restoring the airport by restoring Theresa and, you know, making those junk security robots actually decent.
1 OR14 unit at a time now. Simplicity, they're going to be on the offense. That's going to be Zoms, possibly running with the Widowmaker. So triple DPS coming out from Simplicity. This is interesting.
And it's still triple DPS. So there, you do have a swap up here, though, where they're not going to be running the one support variant that you end up having from other teams. Instead, they're just going to be having Ginger pop his Mercy in the back. And Stratus now, he gets to play hard mode. He can easily get sniped out. And already, the pressure coming in. He's getting healed, but one snipe is all it takes.
Yeah, and then we have Damon here on the Sombra now. Oh, they're in the back. They have to commit that biotic nade just to keep the Mercy alive. And this is one of the issues that Anas have, trying to keep Mercies alive into this composition. But Butcher is able to localize out DPS, take him out, and now they're transitioning onto Wonjae.
The problem that you have here, though, from the setup is that if you lose DPS from the Simplicity offense, you have no way of controlling space. Single tank setups are very risky, but that is a payoff there. They were able to get Stratus even as they're resetting up. The problem is that you no longer have the tank front line to secure that kill. Phozix has all the room in the world to go, yeah, I'm actually gonna bring Stratus back up. So if you focus down DPS, if you're NRG, you have a very clear way to win these fights.
Yep, Recon Visor is up, and so that's why Damon was spotted out. Even though he was in stealth, Stratus, making Retzi's life a living hell. That damage-boosted Rock just one-shotting Retzi out of that battle now. And so, Simplicity, they have to reset.
They're resetting, and at some point, okay, there you go. The Widow Dream is dead. They're going double tank. They need to do that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, they are going to have, of course, a Ginger Pop. He's got that Valkyrie up, so they're not going over to the Lucio quite yet, which is really what you want when you're running this dive composition. Still, we'll see. KSF, he's got the Blade. Retzi's got the bomb soon.
Yeah, the key here is going to be KSF, right? Where can he catch people off guard, especially for Phozix gets Valkyrie. He's got Valkyrie right now to deal with this Blade, but Zombs gets on the Rob immediately. Here comes the Blade as KSF gets hacked. Hacked in the moment and taken down. Pulls out the Blade, but he probably shouldn't have. Meanwhile, Retzi still in this fight, working around the outskirts. Rob has been brought back up, and Retzi now just looking for something to turn this the other way, but he's fighting against Tide. His team is dead. And now we have a pause, so we will have a moment to contemplate the offense that we just saw.
Yeah, so even though they just used the Blade out from KSF, you know, it's at the 2-minute mark there. He's going to have more than enough time to build it up again, so I'm not completely worried about them. What I'm looking at towards Ginger Pop, is he going to be staying on that Mercy, or will he go over to that Lucio to really make the dive a bit more potent? I think when they first started off on that engagement, it looked great, right? They went straight after that Ana. They had Winston jump in, DPS jumped in, Retzi was lurking in the back, and they had the coordination down pat where they just one-shot him really quickly.
One thing I will say, though, that I want to see teams stop trying to do until the point where, okay, if you make it work, I'd be singing a different tune, but every time in Contenders, in NA, that we've seen a team go, we're going to run a single tank setup, it doesn't work. You don't have the space control, and more than anything else, your players are conditioned to be used to working with double tanks. And because the other team is not put off guard, because they have more room to work with, you have situations where you have like Retzi coming in off the flank. People aren't really worried. You've already killed DPS, the main tank, and it's just like, oh, we don't have to worry about getting dove on. It's just a Tracer, and then they turn around and kill Retzi. I'm not a fan of these single tank compositions, at least how teams have played them.
What is it that they're trying to do when they do that triple DPS?
So with that Widowmaker Zombs, you know, in the past he has played DPS, and so they do trust him to do that. But the thing is, so Widowmaker damage boosted can feasibly 2-3 shot a tank, right? If you get a headshot, then it's going to be a 2-shot. But a body shot will keep a Winston a little bit scared, right? I believe it does about 250. So if you can land 2 of those in a row, then yeah, he's going to die soon. But the thing is, you have that same almost one-shot potential with the D.Va, so I don't know why you would run the Widowmaker instead, because the D.Va is a bit more reliable in chasing down a Winston that's diving in.
Well, the other thing, too, is that think about from DPS's perspective, again, the Winston main tank, I have to continually clarify because this name is actually torture the cast, is consider this, is that you are a main tank, you are used to pairing up with D.Va. 99% of the time you're playing Winston, you are paired up with the D.Va. What does that do to your sense of danger where suddenly you're thrown into a situation where it's just like, oh, right, I don't have a D.Va backing me up. Your sense of how deep you can go and actually stay alive is going to be messed up to begin with, and that's before considering all the other reasons why you probably don't want to sacrifice a tank. If you're going to go multiple DPS, I very much like the Optic approach instead, where you do it by sacrificing a support, because that one actually has a very high success rate.
All right, and so now we are back into the game. Simplicity, they've got 1 minute and 45 seconds. They haven't gotten any progress here on point A yet, but they do have a window of opportunity. It's just the barrage along with the self-destruct online for the defense now.
Simplicity waiting for their chance to go in, and they still have to respect Stratus, who's up in the air. They have to worry about Damon hacking in the back. And what they might do here is they just might go straight up the gut and use Transcendence to back things up. They almost have Specs. Specs getting chunked down heavily, able to live though, and Simplicity, they think they have an opportunity. They're going to transcend off of that chunking, and they get Butcher. Butcher was left on his lonesome because their D.Va had to go heal, but it's Stratus who evens it up. The barrage or the top, backed up by Specs' self-destruct, and NRG has not taken critical damage here. In fact, Specs is having one heck of a time.
Yep, they are going to be able to survive this, and now it's coming down to the final push for Simplicity. An even greater stagger onto Zombs. The sleep dart is there. Damon has full control of Pax. Now it's going to be so difficult for Simplicity pushing in. Ginger Pop making the swap on over to the Lucio, only at 20%. It's going to be a difficult task to try and get a sound barrier up for this, especially because 1J Lee doesn't even have a Transcendence.
There's not a lot of great win conditions here for Simplicity. Probably one of the best ones is a really good self-destruct by Zoms that, to a degree, is going to be half luck, half skill in the situation. You can easily avoid this, and they have to hope that they catch it before they get EMP'd. Simplicity. Final 20 seconds, moving in. Early pulse bomb sticks. Now, you gotta convert your kill. Throw in the self-destruct, prevent the res. It hasn't happened. It's late. The self-destruct would have been excellent there, and Zoms throws her over the top. It doesn't connect. KFSF's gonna get hacked in the back, and Stratus now has all sorts of room to work with.
Yeah, we even saw the hack coming out onto Retzi there, left him as a sitting duck. Damon taking him all out now, and so NRG Esports, they just need to clean up a few more members. We've got even another self-destruct coming up from Smex. Overtime taking away. Will anyone be able to touch it? No. Simplicity, full held, no progress whatsoever here on point A.
And once more, you have the scenario where a team decides, we're just going to run one tank. We don't need a diva, do we? And the answer is yes. Yes, you did. You did need the diva in the situation. And I will say is that I still think since Mercy got nerfed, teams are not always tentative to the idea that their picks are not permanent when a Mercy is being played. There was an opportunity to punish NRG there, to prevent the resurrection from coming in. I think if Zoms had thrown that self-destruct out just a little bit earlier, you could have stopped that, or at the very least scared off the Mercy from committing to the resurrection. It didn't happen. The self-destruct actually was pretty high up and out of the way, didn't get anything in the end. And now Simplicity, the best they can do here on Nambani is a draw.
No, I completely agree. That was not a resable position. They should not have allowed it to go over for free, and that was the ultimate downfall. I mean, if they had just thrown out that self-destruct, maybe the res got off, but the Mercy definitely would not have escaped there. So now NRG, they're poised to take their second map in this series. All they need is one tick here on point A, and they're not going to try anything different. They're just going to go standard 2-2-2 dive out up against Simplicity.
They don't really have to do anything crazy here. All you need to do is have a good, solid, normal offense, put in as many reps as possible, and you're likely to get 33%. You will have moments where you have ult advantage unless you are just getting completely and utterly thrashed. And for Simplicity, the thrash him here would require Retzi to have the game of his life. He does have a very good defensive 76. We've seen Simplicity at full holds before, but this would be something else.
Yeah, the thing is, NRG, all they really have to do, they don't even have to commit to a full dive, right? What they can do is just dislodge him from the high ground, and then just go back to the point. And force Simplicity to move forward while taking all the damage in the world. So NRG doesn't have to be hyper-aggressive in this dive. They just need to deny that positioning out of Retzi.
NRG moving their way in right now. And again, there's no pressure on them in here. And yet, they're going for raw reps on the point here. They already have half a tick. Simplicity giving up a lot of room, and we have a DC.
Yep. Looks like we do have a DC once again. DPS struggling just a little bit there. So a little unfortunate because they are on the defense.
Yeah, okay, so effectively they're down an extra player because their main tank has disconnected. Probably one of the least fortunate players to have disconnect. They've given up half a tick on a point. They're probably not bringing this one back.
Simplicity and NRG seemed like they were going to be not necessarily an even match, but one that Simplicity shouldn't be having this hard of a time. They should be giving NRG a little bit more of a run for their money. Where do you see their weaknesses going right now?
I think they're perfectly evenly matched back on control. The problem is that they went into Nambani and said, we don't have to run a diva. And it ended up getting them full held. So it makes them look worse than they actually are in all likelihood because they went for a cheeky meta decision where they said, we can make this work. And the problem is that while you look like a genius when it does work, you look equally foolish when it doesn't.
Yeah, one of the things is, of course, they kind of ran into that like gambler's fallacy where, oh, I've got this ultimate, I'll just hold on to it and use it. And in particular, I'm talking about Ginger Pop on the Mercy. Of course, he had the Valkyrie, or he was going to have it very shortly when they swapped wholesale over to the 2-2-2 dive, bringing Zoms onto the Diva. But the thing is, like, you need the Lucio speed boost. You need the Lucio speed boost to be able to continue to chase down the members of the defense. Otherwise, NRG, they just keep running back. They just had to kite all day long.
Well, also, I mean, Zoms did get a few pickoffs on Widowmaker, but they had the consistent problem of, oh, you've gotten a pickoff. How quaint. Would you like to finish your plate before Mercy raises the dead? And the answer was, no, please. Have free, uncontested resurrections as much as you like. That kind of defeats a point of running in with a pick comp. You need to support that and be aware, hey, they have a Mercy. Hey, their Mercy is trying to res at every possible opportunity. Would you like to punish this? Because you should.
Where did you see the breakdown, or where would you consider the breakdown have been as D.Va's call kind of ulting late and then kind of also being in a poor position to ult in the first place?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it could be anything from Zoms might have been a little bit more out of position than it was aware on the camera. There might not have been good communication within the team that said, hey, go, go, go. I mean, these are decisions made in a snap moment where even though from the observing point of view, we kind of have a point of view of like, oh, this would be the best play. From the player perspective, if you're not being told, if you're just caught in a separate duel that's going on, you don't always have that information in the nick of time, because to have that self-destruct cover that early Retzi pick, Zoms would have had to have thrown it pretty much within a period of about a window of 1 to 1.5 seconds. So if you didn't have that crisp call, it wouldn't have been in time. In fact, the self-destruct did come in, but it was late. It was right after the resurrection had completed.
I mean, there might have been indecision because everyone was there, right? Everyone was on the point. You had your Winston there. You had your D.Va there. Maybe they were afraid that they couldn't get the Winston barrier down in time, but honestly, like, a team should be able to burst down a Winston bubble in time for that self-destruct to come through. It is very difficult to try and coordinate that, especially when you're having to play around the Winston barrier, and your sole goal is to try and get that D.Va bomb onto a Mercy.
So judging kind of how NRG and Simplicity are both playing in this, regardless of that, actually, what does this mean for either of those teams for playoff selections?
Well, for NRG has sort of been having close battle after close battle. If they're able to take down Simplicity here, it makes it far more likely that they're going against at playoffs. In fact, most playoff roads would include NRG. They wouldn't have it confirmed, but they'd be in a very good spot. Meanwhile, for Simplicity, it puts them much closer to the danger zone of not being one of those final teams. I mean, they know no matter what, they're going to be ahead of bye week, but unfortunately, 2 teams end up getting relegated here, so it's a much harder road for Simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, Simplicity already down a map, and it looks like feasibly they're going to be almost on match point here. It's difficult because, I mean, we all even saw it last week when we had our 2-1s, right? If you're already up 2 by the half, and then we move into Assault, you can just rely upon a draw, and you got the match win. So it becomes so much, the pressure keeps unrelenting onto Simplicity at this point after this map.
Of course, Simplicity, they're no stranger to attempting the reverse sweep.
Yeah.
They almost gave Philly fans just deja vu in the worst possible way. So even if Simplicity does lose here on Nabani, which is not really a strong if, it's more like they will lose here on Nabani, barring an act of God, given the disconnect and where things are at. Still, as you look forward to Horizon, they can bring this back. We've seen them do it against Philly, arguably the best team in the group. So they're not out of it.
All right, well, let's get right back into game. Here we are, back into Nambani.
Well, we're back in Nambani, and NRG, of course, doesn't have far to go. Simplicity getting just cleaned up across the board. DPS respawning in, but they are just like a tiny sliver of a sliver away from putting this one in. It's 1 tick almost, and I can't believe it's still contested, and now it's not.
Okay, so DPS was able to make it back on time, but Phosix just had a well-placed right-click there, force him off, and as we saw, it was just a sliver away, and so just being off the point for that split second, that got it for them. Honestly, Simplicity almost had it. They almost had the retake.
Yep, and, well, it's unfortunate that you had the disconnect there, but it still wasn't the most likely that they would have defended given the circumstances anyway. However, Simplicity, they have 2 more maps to go. They can bring this back, but gonna have to see what they do in Assault first.
Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to see from these teams next week. We've got Simplicity going up against Optic and NRG going up against Bye-Week. So if Bye-Week continues to play the same way that they've been playing this entire kind of season, it can be assumed that NRG will be walking away with that win. What does that mean? Because Simplicity, again, not looking very strong right now, just lost another map on Numbani. So assuming Simplicity continues to play this way and this doesn't go so well for them, where are those standings?
Look, Simplicity just activated Dark Souls super hard mode, right? Where that now they have to complete a reverse sweep in this instance, and then you have to go against Optic, arguably the number 2 team in this group. It doesn't get any easier. Meanwhile, for NRG, after this game, they could go, oh, we're up against Bye Week. They have 0 reason to fear Bye Week from everything we've seen right now. That, unfortunately, Bye Week kind of lives up to its namesake in the current time. So NRG's in a great position right now.
Yeah, this is definitely a case where NRG can actually propel themselves really far forward in the standings, even go from 5th to 2nd if they take the victory up against Simplicity 4-0 today. Every single map win counts, and with how close the race is in between the 2nd through 5th places, especially in the map differentials, yeah, NRG can definitely get into 2nd place.
Alrighty, well, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will have more action between Simplicity and NRG, and hopefully we can see Simplicity start to turn this around. Stay tuned.